Now let's get back into transforming our data, and we'll go back to our Power Query editor. So by now you should have cleaned your scikit-plot file and you should have what I have opened. So we'll go back to our Power Query editor. And another thing I have not mentioned is another data transformation you can do on your data sets is actually changing the name of your field. So for example, let's go back to scikit-prod, the one we edited in the last video. We could change the name of our field. So say I don't like the underscore on my product new, I could just double click on it and I can just say product, sorry, I'm not typing product new, and press enter. And I've just changed that. So I've changed that. You can see there's a new step that says I renamed the column in my data set. So we can also rename columns in our data set. Now, something I want to talk about here is us adding new columns. So we've talked about some of the things we can use on the home tab. Let's go to adding new columns. And in this video, we're going to be looking at the sales data set, I believe. Sales data set, and this is data set that holds all the sales transactions. So we have transaction date, we have stock date, we have invoice ID, we have age group key, we have customer gender key, and so on and so forth. Say we want to add a new column, right? Let's add an index column. What is an index column? An index column contains a list of sequential values, right? So numbers that follow certain sequence that's used to identify a unique row. For example, we start counting from 1, 2, 3, 4. So we could have index column starting from 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's add an index column. So how do we add an index column? We go to the add column tab like we already have here. And there are different options, right? There's column from examples, there's a custom column, there's invoke custom function, conditional column index function. So this is the one we want, right? And if we click on that drop down, index column, now it's asking us where do we want our numbers to start from? Do we want our numbers starting from 0, that's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Or do we want it starting from 1, 1, 2, 3, 4? Or do we want a custom option? So if you click on custom, for example, we would enter some user-defined options. So it's saying starting index increment. So maybe I want it to start from 2 and in an increment of 2. So that would be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 if I wanted it like that. But I don't want it like that. I want to start from 1. So I'll go to index function starting from 1. And you will notice it has created an index column at the end of my data, right? So you can see index column, and that's at the last column is now an index column. I could move this, right? I could move this to the beginning. So if I right click on index column, I can move it to the beginning instead of the end. And now you can see that index column is now um, my first column. So it's basically like a unique identifier for each column. This is column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's how to add an index column to um, our data set. So there's also conditional columns, right, that we could add to our data set, and that's basically you adding columns based on some logical rules that you've set. So it's similar to your if statements or your case statements in SQL. So basically, we are saying let's take another data set. For example, let's go back to this scikit-prod, and we have units cost, we have unit price. So let's come up with a logic and say if the unit price is less than or equal to 100, then we want to say the price range is low. So we are creating a new conditional column called price range. So if the unit price is less than or equal to 100, we want to say the price range is low. If it's less than 1,000, that's between 100 and 1,000, then it's mid. Then if it's higher than 1,000 or equal to 1,000, we can say we want to say it's high, right? So let's do that. So how do we do that? Basically, it's simple, right? We want to say conditional columns, right? And we just click on conditional columns, and we have this option open. So we have to input the column name. So I'm just going to call my column name, let's call it price range. And so we define our logic here. So we say if unit price, let's use unit price, is let's say it is less than or equal to 100. We want to output low, and we'll add a new clause. We want to say if unit price is let's say less than 1000. We want to say it is mid, right? And we want to say if unit price is greater than or equal to 1000, we want to say it is high. Let's just say else, meaning if none of all this logic is met, then we want to say it's unclassified, right? And let's click on OK. So remember, the name of our column is price range. Click on OK, and we have our new column, price range. You can see we have low, high, mid, etc. And we have added that new column to our data set. Then another option is something called column from examples, and basically this column from examples allows you to add a new column by providing an example value, and I'll show us I'll show us a sample right now. So let's go to let's use our calendar table. If that would work. Okay, let's use our calendar table. And first of all, before we even start doing any column from example, I already see that we have some, oddities here. Our column name is not our column name. Our column name is the first thing. So just like we did previously, we can promote, right? So if you go back home and use our first row as headers, so it's promoted that, and then we have our date and time as um, as the column headers. Now, in data generally, it's really bad practice to have your date and time, especially in Power BI when you're visualizing. It's bad practice to have your date and time together. You'd always want to split it into date in one column and time in another column. So we're going to use column from examples to split this into its individual components. So let's go to add columns, right? And we're going to do column from example. And there are two options. So we're going to do from selection because we are selecting one column and we want to do example from that one column. So we'll do from selection. And now what do we do? So this is the column we have, date and time, right? And here we just enter an example of what we want to use using the first row. So the first row says 2015 0101, time 9:53:24 seconds. I want to just select the date. So I'm just going to tell Power BI, I'm going to click here in the exact opposite row and I'm going to just start typing. I'm going to say 2015. So it gives me some example here, but let's ignore that for now. 2015 dash 01 dash 01, and if I click on enter, so based on the example I gave Power BI, that's populated the other rows based on the example I gave here. So that's basically what column from examples does. That's populated that row, right? I could do some other thing, right? I could select 2015. So let's go back. Let's delete this. Right, so it's giving me other examples. I could select end of day. I could select, but what I just need is a date actually, right? The other, if I start by saying 2015, I could select the year. So if I do 2015 alone, it's just going to pick the year component. But what I want is the date component and have the time component separate. So I'm just going to do what I did again. 2015 01 01, and based on what I typed, you can see it has populated, that's taken out the date component from this field and has created a new field for that. So I'm just going to click on OK. So you can see I have a new step here. I said inserted text before delimiter. So I can always rename my my column. I'm going to call it date, right? And I have my date, and I have my date column, right? So we can use this particular tool when we know the outcome we want, but we don't know which transformation to use. So we know what we want to get, but we don't know which transformation to select from any of our tabs. We could just always use this method. So that's adding new columns to our data set. In the next video, we're going to be talking about grouping and aggregating data. How do we group sets of data together? How do we aggregate set of data together? We're going to be looking at that in the next video, so stay tuned.